Hey guys, welcome back to GWiz Academy. Perfect. So we have almost covered all the concepts in HTML that I guess any beginner should be aware of before starting or when he or she is just getting started with web development or programming. So now coming to a slightly intermediate concept called as HTML forms. That is what we'll be learning in this video. See, with HTML there is a very limited functionality that we can perform. We can just create a skeleton of a form, of a contact form. Contact form is nothing but it can be contact form or any other form, whatever you see on web page or websites, wherever you see some input fields. These are called input fields where a user can add some data and the website will process the data and display it somewhere else, or it will send an email, or it will do some calculations, whatever it is. These are called as input fields, and these kind of forms we very oftenly see on web pages, right? So most common form that is being used very widely is a contact form. On any website, if you go, you will find a contact form. Just for ease of understanding, I have taken an example of a contact form as of now. So here, I have created a simple contact form. Before we start, you need to understand that with HTML, there is a very limited functionality, not even styles. I have added a slide CSS over here so that, it looks like a form actually. But I totally understand that this design is very bad. But as of now, you don't have to worry about the design, because in the next series, that is CSS series, we'll go ahead and style these form fields as well and make it look more attractive. And once we start our bootstrap series, this complete contact form will look amazing. So you don't have to worry about the look and feel as of now. And number two, you don't have to worry about the functionality as well. If I submit some data here, some random data or some random email or whatever it is, if I click on submit, the data is not getting submitted. To submit the data, we will need either JavaScript, or we will need Python or PHP or some programming language to do something with that particular data. So right now we are learning HTML, so you don't have to worry about what exactly we are doing with this data as well. So then what are we going to learn in this HTML class? We will be learning how to build this particular structure, how these form fields are created, what is a basic structure that we need to understand, and then on top of which other parameters like CSS and JavaScript or any other programming or code functions goes. So that's a different task. But for now, we need to understand the fundamentals of how the forms are created. Obviously, it will be created by using HTML. A very skeleton form will be created by HTML. And once the structure is developed, we add conditions, we add parameters, we add styling, we add a logic, and then the whole contact form is completed. In this video, we'll be creating a basic structure of a contact form. This is not a working contact form. We will be soon completing this contact form after next series, maybe after CSS or Bootstrap. But till then, now we will learn the structure of HTML form. So, how to start creating? So what you need to see here, this is the code for this particular contact form. This is the code that we need to write. So you don't have to get overwhelmed. I'll try to explain you all these things, and you'll definitely get a grasp about all this, what's going on in the backend. But yeah, this is the code for this particular form without styling. Styling is just one line of code. So without styling, this is the code. Alright, now so let's go ahead and start creating our contact form. So let's click on new file. What is the chapter? Chapter 23. underscore HTML form.html. Perfect. So now let's add our boilerplate doc type declaration, and then head, and then title, and then title will be, sorry, so the title has to go inside head. Yeah, so title is chapter 23 forms, and then we have body. Okay, so we didn't write this HTML start, right? HTML start and HTML close. Okay. Perfect. So now inside this body we are going to write our fine. So now before writing, okay, let's see this on our browser. Alright, so there is nothing being displayed. Here, if you see, what are the form fields that we have right now in this contact form? First thing is sample contact form. This is a heading, right? So how to add a heading? You already know it. So what we do? Just add h1, okay? HTML contact form, right? So once the heading is added, if you go back here, you'll be able to see that we have the contact form heading. Perfect. So then what is the second step we need to do? We need to add this first form field. But before that, you need to understand that the whole form from start to finish, from the first field to the submit button, is already inside one particular tag that is nothing but form tag. So we will have this form tag, right? And inside this form tag, we will one by one add name, phone, email, gender, skills, message, and submit. These are the form fields. So if these are the form fields, what is these called as? This text being written here, right? So what is this text called as? This text is called as label, and here this is a field where a user sends the data to the website, right? We can enter the data. So what is that exactly? We need to call it as an input field. This is a text input field, this is a phone number input field, this is an email input field, this is a radio button. There are so many types of input fields. We will explore it later on in our future advanced videos, but for now you need to understand some basic input fields types, right? Most commonly used input fields are text, phone, email, radio button, or checkboxes. See, we can have this checkboxes or radio button in the sense whenever we want to just select one option out of all the options, then we use radio button. We need to use checkbox when we want to select multiple options, and this is a text area, this is for message, right? Perfect. So this is called as input field, this is called as label, and combined we call it as a form field. All right, so now let's go ahead and start adding a first field here. What is the first form field? Name and input field. There are two things that we need to add. First is the label. So just type label, close it, and what is the label? Enter your name, or let's say enter name. Perfect. Save it, and then here right in the bottom of this, after this label, what we need to write, we need to have let's see here, enter name is appeared, right? So now let's add something called as input field. Input let's use caps, input. Okay, so here first thing that we need to do here is we need to specify the type of input. What is the type of input? There are different types of input. As I said, there are color, date time, local, email, file, hidden, image, month. These are all the data that we can ask a user to submit, right? So the most common form types, input types are these that right now you are able to see, from button, checkbox, color, date, email, file, month, radio, range, submit, tell. You can go ahead and explore each of them, but right now for this tutorial purpose I'll be using a type called as text. And then if I save it and go back, I can see there is a form field and there is a name. Now the second thing that we need to do, there are some attributes that we need to add over here. We will come on that topic very soon. The second thing, that second form field, what is the second form field? The second form field is phone number. Alright, so what I'll do, I'll add a label. Label should be enter phone, right? And then what I'll do, I'll add an input. Input type is phone. Phone is not a valid input type. We have an input type called as tel, T-E-L. It will make sure that the form data is accepting only telephone numbers, or in a sense mobile numbers. So let's save it and go back here. See, phone, enter name. Perfect. So what I'll do, I'll add a BR tag so that we can get these two on a different line. Perfect. Let's add one more so that we have some spacing, right? Perfect. So we have name field, form field. Right now, this label and input pair is incomplete. Why? Because right now we have created a label and we have created an input, but we haven't connected this particular input with the label. To connect this particular label and input and this particular label with this particular input, we need to do something. We need to assign some ID, right? How to do that? First thing that we need to do is, in label, what you need to do is you need to add for attribute, and then you need to assign an ID. For attribute, what can be the ID? Name, just random anything. You need to assign a name for a for attribute, to a for attribute, okay? And as soon as you come to this input field, input tag, you just need to enter this space and you need to add ID. What is the ID that we have assigned to this particular name? We have assigned an ID called as name. So just make sure you copy the same exact words and paste it inside ID. So what does this do is, this will tell our code that this particular ID, this particular line of code is now, this particular input field is now assigned to this particular label only. This is not associated with any other labels. So our code is extremely clear right now. Alright, fine. So as soon as we assign a for attribute to the label and ID attribute to the input with the same text or ID, we have connected the label and we have created a label and input pair. So same thing what we need to do here as well. In the phone number field, we need to add a for attribute for phone number, and here under input you need to assign an ID called as phone. Now I have created a link between this particular input field and this particular label, right? So once the link is created, still this is not complete yet. There is more parameters, such as you need to have you need to have attribute called as name. Please make sure, don't get confused with this name with this name. This name can be anything. Here name X or name X, right? So this ID, this is an ID that we have assigned to this particular label. This is a name attribute. This is different. This name attribute has to be present, else this form doesn't get submitted. This name and value pair. We need to have name and value pair. See, whenever a user submits some data, whenever some user submits some data here in the input field, that data we will go ahead and capture and put it inside this value. But right now we are not using any JavaScript or we are not using any PHP, right? PHP or Python code. So what we will do, I will custom code this one. I'll write manually what is the value. I'll write the value is Rakesh. Okay. But when we are going to create this kind of a contact form in our live production environment, what we will generally have a code that will capture the data from here and it will assign a variable and we add it here. We will see all those things, how to do that later on, but right now what I'm doing is I'm assigning a value manually, and manual data is Rakesh, and the name is you can give any name here, let's say customer name, okay, underscore name. See, there is two things that you need to understand. You need to firstly have for and ID pair, and then name and value pair. Name and value pair, you will add it. Name and value are two attributes that you need to add it inside the input tag. Whereas for, you need to add, for is the attribute that you need to add it in label, and ID is the attribute that you need to add it in input. I'll tell you, I'll explain you once again. See, for we have assigned in label, ID we have assigned in input, okay, and name and value pair, name and value pair. Value is nothing but the data that we are getting from the form, from the front end, that we need to capture and put it inside the value. And here this name attribute, we use it because let's say we want to pull this particular data and display it somewhere else, then for some database reasons we use it. Using this name itself we target this particular field. So we will see that in our later videos how to work with the form data, but for now you just need to understand that we need to have a name and value pair, else the form will not work. So now this particular field is complete. What is the most important thing is for attribute in label, type attribute in input, ID attribute in input, name attribute in input, value attribute in input. Same thing goes for the next field also. What is the attribute? For attribute and ID attribute we have added. We have added the type attribute. Now what is left? Name and value pair. Name and value. Value is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever it is. And then name is customer, right? Save it. And let's go back here and see. See, we have added value here, right? What did I say? When a customer adds some data here, it will get added into this particular attribute inside value. But right now we are not using any programming language, so I hard coded it. I manually added it from the backend itself so that it is getting displayed directly in the front end as well. So now what is the other field that we have here? Name, phone and email. Okay, all right. So what is the email field that we need to create? Let me add a BR tag so that it. So the first thing is we need to have label, close label. What is the label? Enter email. Okay, and then we need to have a for attribute. As soon as you write label, you just add for attribute. For What is email? Let's assign this as an ID. So input type. As soon as you type this input, you need to enter the type attribute. Type attribute is email. We have a standard input types for any form. So we'll add type as an email, and then ID should be equal to the for value. It is nothing but email. It is this email is, and this email, you should not get confused. This can be anything. This is as ID that we are assigning. Let's say ID email X, but this is not the ID that we are assigning. This is a standard input type email. So now for and ID is added. Now what is left? Name and value pair. Name, let's give customer email, and value is gmail.com. Perfect. So this is the email address, this is phone number, this is the name. If we don't add the value, without value, the form will be submitted. Without any information, the form will be submitted. But what if we definitely want a user to submit the data for sure? He or she should not be able to submit the form without entering the details. Then we have a attribute that we can add called as, let's say if I want to make email form field a compulsory one. So what I'll do, I'll add a parameter called as required. Yes. So now, or let's say just required is also fine. So if we add this parameter, it will make this particular label as compulsory. Now let's say if I want to make some form field just a read only, just as a plain text, then what we need to do, we need to add a parameter called as read only. That's it. Simple. There are some form attributes as well, but we will see that in a while. We will see that. Yeah. So now what is the other next form? Let me remove this read only as of now. All right. Required is fine. Okay. So let me add this to BR. Save it. This is the form, right? All right. Let me not add any value here so that it is not displayed on the front end. Okay. So now what is the next form field? Let's go ahead and create this radio button. How to add this radio button? These form fields were simple, right? This is a text, this is phone number, this is email. This is text, telephone and email. So now we will add a label. Before label, we'll add a text called as select your gender. Select your gender, and then let's say we add break tag, and then here we will add a label called as male, and then see here this male is a label, and this where exactly we are selecting, right? So this is the input field. So input, in the sense we'll need to add input. Close it. Input type radio, and then what else? We need to have an ID we haven't assigned it, right? So let's say for male X, just male is fine. It doesn't conflict, the name doesn't conflict or confuse you, so just male is fine. So the ID should be exactly same of what we have written in male. So ID is perfect. Now name and value pair. Name, let's give gender as a name so that it is easy to remember, because for all the options that we will be creating, let's use gender. Customer gender. This is a name that I want to give, so that by pulling this data I can pull the gender of that particular selection. Alright, so now name is done and value, let's keep it blank as of now. And then because the user will select it anyways, and now let's save it and see how does the R form look. If you see, we have this select a gender text, male, label, and this input field is on the right side. What we need, we want input field on the left side. So what I'll do, I'll just copy and paste it before the label so that it appears on the left side. Perfect. So select your gender, male is added. So what we need more options. So what I'll do, I'll copy this complete input and label pair, and here what I'll do, in the next line I'll paste it. Make sure that you don't change the name, okay, because this is the option of a same field, so the name should be same. And here what I need to change is we need to add female, right? So the label is now female, ID is female, here also ID is female, and then value is, let's keep it value, let's say for here male, and this value is female. Perfect. So now let's save it and see how does our form look. Male and female, right? So what people do, what generally students do is they update this name field as well. And if I change anything, if these two name field doesn't match, what will happen? Just see. You will not see any error here, but multiple selections are possible. When you want to select multiple options, then under this options also name should be different, value of this name should be different. But right now I just want the same name should be selected for every selection. So I'll add the same name here, value, and then the third option is others. So enter, copy the same thing, and what is the label? Others. ID I'll assign others, for others, and name should be same, these three names should be same, and the value is others, right? Now if you save, male, female, and other, right? Isn't it amazing? We have created 3 form fields, 4 form fields actually, and then actually more, 1, 2, 3, 3 plus 3, 6. So we have created 6 form fields, but these 3 form fields are considered as one option itself. So we have created 4 form fields as of now, and then the next thing that we need to create is a selection checkbox. This is a form field, input type is checkbox. So let's go ahead now, and here let's create a checkbox. So select your skills, and I'll add BR tag, and then so if I want to stack it right now, as you can see, it is getting displayed on the same line. If I just want to stack it, what I'll do is I'll just add BR tag, right? You got it, right? I hope you understood. So it will just stack one below other. So I think this inline is also fine. So let's keep it as it is for now. And yeah, what I'll do, we have added this select your skills. So what we need a label and input pair. So label is, let's say HTML is the first skill. I'll assign a ID. For parameter should go, we need to add let's say HTML, and here I'll assign, first thing that we need to add input is we need to mention the type. type is checkbox. Okay, just make sure this is a standard one. Checkbox is the form field type, right? And then id should be equal to this value HTML, and then name and value pair, name and value is HTML, just for identification purpose. It can be anything, but if it matches with the same text, it is easy for us to remember. Name should be, let's say, HTML skill, let's say HTML skill. Right, save it, and now if you see HTML skill, right, we have this square, this is a circle input, this is a square input. That this change happened because we have changed the type. Here the type is radio, here the type is checkbox. When you add checkbox type, the box changes to the square instead of circle. So now I need this input to appear on the top. Before that, what I'll do, I'll just copy this 3 times, or let's say I'll add it here. Let me add a break tag here. Alright, so now I'll just copy paste this 3 times. Save it. You can see, if you see here, this checkbox is working now, but this is not right. So here what we need to do is, the name here will conflict. So second is, we need to add this second skill called CSS skill. So third is JavaScript skill, whatever skill that you want to add. So now I need to change the for value, ID value, name value, and exact this value parameter as well. I need to change all the parameters. So let me go ahead and add this form value to JS. So if for is JS, then ID should also be JS. And let me add this for to CSS. If for is CSS, then ID should be CSS. Let me add for HTML, the ID should be HTML. Okay, perfect. So now the name has to be updated. Name should be CSS skill. This is JS skill, right? So that name, what exactly this name is doing is nothing but we have some database things going on in the backend. When we start working with database or modifying the data that user has submitted, we need these things. So you need to remember, when we add a checkbox, this name parameter should not be same. When we add radio options, the name parameters should be same. Okay, just know this as of now. You will slowly understand what exactly is happening in the backend, and once you start understanding how to make use of the data that the user submits, and how to capture the data, how to function with the data, and all those things, we'll see that in the later videos. For now, we just need to know how to correctly build the structure of a form. So now save it, and if you go back here, I can see this form fields are created now successfully. And then what else? We'll add one more BR, and the next thing that we need here is we need this text area, a message box. Let's say message box. So how do we add this message box? You don't need input and label pair here to add a text area. We have a direct tag called as text area, and here we'll add what exactly we need to add. Name, yeah, we'll assign a name is custom message, and then value we don't have to custom code it as of now. And now let's save it and see how does it look. A text box is added over here, but we don't have any. Either we can have this thing, either we can have this, just random text, or what we can do is, let's see if we can have input, actually label form as well here. Label, enter your text. This is label is for custom MSG, and ID I need to assign ID custom MSG. I guess this is not needed, but still, let's go ahead and see our sample. I have used a label here as well, but yeah, it's fine even if we don't use that particular label, it will still work. Anyways, we'll see that once we start creating this particular form functional, but for now I guess this is fine. We have assigned for, ID same, and then we have label. Let's see how it looks for now. Enter your text. Okay, so let's add BR here. Okay, perfect. So this box is small. What if I want to expand this to till here? What I need to do? There is a parameter called as call. Call represents columns. Let's say 30. Save it. Perfect. So we have expanded. What if we add 80 and save? It increases the number of columns that is getting added to this particular box, right? So we'll use 30 as of now. You can also, same thing you can do for rows as well. You can add more rows, 6 rows. If you save it and see, we have 6 rows here right now. Okay, so let's not add any rows as of now because default rows are fine. I just explained you because so that if in case you want to make the box bigger, then you can make it. Anyways, you will have this, you will anyways will easily be able to increase the size of that particular box by hovering, by pulling this particular area, corner. Well, so now what is the thing that is left? Okay, so we don't have a submit button, right? So let's go ahead and add a submit button. How to add a submit button? Let's add first BR, and then we'll add a tag called as BTN button, and button label should be submit the form, submit form. Okay, save it, and if you see, we have a submit form. Why is this alert we are able to see? Because you cannot submit the form field if you have mentioned that this is the required field. You can submit all the fields without entering any data, but you cannot submit the email field. To submit this form, you need to enter this value, right? So anyways, this is not a button that will work. We need to add some other parameters as well. Button type, you need to add submit so that the form data is getting submitted. Value, submit, right? Perfect. Now this form is completed. The structure of a form is completed. There are some other additional parameters as well to this form tag that we added in the first step before creating the form. These are the form fields that we have worked on right now, but before starting we added a form tag, right? So here, once the data is submitted, where should the data go? To specify that, we have an attribute called as action. We will mention the path where all these data should go. We'll add a path, we'll add a file name where our server code is written so that we send this particular data to that particular file, and then processing will happen and it will be shown somewhere. And where will it get shown once the processing is done? Where should the message, confirmation message or something else, where should it be shown? To mention that also, we have a parameter called as, attribute called as target. Target self, parent, self, top, blank. Generally we use self so that the result comes back here itself. Your form is submitted, your form is submitted successfully, all those things, or whatever the data, if we want to display the data that we have processed, again it will be shown on the same file. We use, depending upon the use case, we use it. And one more parameter that we have is method. There are two methods when we create a form, either it is post method or it is a get method. Generally we recommend, if we are using we are creating any contact form for, we are creating any form, generally form which has very sensitive data, then we use post method. And if we have insensitive data, in the sense not a confidential data, then we use get method. We will understand this later on when we are working with data processing and all those things. We will learn this, but you don't have to worry as of now. We just need to know that get method is not safe because the data is shown in the URL, and in post we don't see any data in the URL. This is the only difference that you need to know as of now, right? And what else? We have another attribute called as name. We can assign name for this particular form. Alright, so I hope you understood how to create this form, right? Alright, so now you might ask me that, that's fine. So how did you bring these content over in the center, and how did you create this background and make it look a bit more neater, right? How did you do that? So for that we have used some CSS that is out of the scope of this particular series, HTML series, but for I can't leave you with this particular form. At least I'll have to make it look like this so that it is presentable, right? At least presentable. I know even this design is not at all good. We cannot make this kind of contact forms on any website. This looks like 1950s, 100 years old contact form. We don't publish these kind of contact forms. We need to add styling and all those things, but yeah, we'll see that in our later videos. But for now, let's go ahead and bring this to the center. How to do that, I'll just show you. You don't have to learn anything, you don't have to memorize or remember anything. You just need to just see and just see how it is done. You don't have to learn it because we will explore everything one by one later on. So what I'll do is, under body I'll create a div element. You must be knowing what exactly is the div element by now. Div, okay, and then I'll assign what I'll do, I'll create, just for dummy purpose, I'll add one heading, h1, this is a dummy heading. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll just save it and see how does it look. This is a dummy heading. Okay, perfect, fine. So what I'll do, I'll go to this div element and I'll start adding styles to this div. So yeah, the first style that I'll add is style width. I want it to be 500 pixels. You are not able to see that. You'll be able to see that once I add background color. Background color, let's say yellow. Now you are able to see, right? And then margin left, I'll add it auto, and margin right, I'll add auto. Save it. We are right now in the center of the screen, and then I'll add one more parameter called as padding. Padding, let's say 50 pixels. Perfect. So now this is done. So what I'll do is I'll copy this complete since from this h1 to form close. Cut everything and replace this heading with this particular code and save it. Now go back to the screen and see that we have right now entered inside the box, and the box is in the center of a screen. This is how you add styling. You don't have to worry or you don't have to remember anything. We will see that in our coming up series on CSS. We will completely understand how to do this, how to add these CSS parameters, right? So thank you very much for watching. Have a great day. I hope you understood HTML form. I know this video is almost an 1 hour long video, so but it is worth it. I wanted to make it cover all these concepts in just one video. Even if you don't understand it, don't worry. Just watch this video 1 or 2 times and just leave it. You don't have to memorize anything, because I'll make sure you, without memorizing all these things, you will understand this. I'll make sure that will happen. We will do that in our further videos. Once we start doing projects, once we start doing CSS, or once we start doing Bootstrap or PHP or JavaScript, you'll clearly understand, because we'll be doing this repeatedly again and again and again and again. All you need to know is, when do we use for attribute, when do we use type attribute, when do we use id attribute. Id and for has to be the same. Name and value pair. Without name and value, we cannot submit the data, submit the form. These are the important points, right? These things you should know. Other than that, you don't have to memorize or anything. Just watch it, understand it, and leave it. Rest, you can count on me. We will slowly, one by one, we will explore. We will be creating tens, and we will be creating many forms. We will be creating many projects. So you will automatically, you will be able to understand all these concepts anyways, right? So thank you very much for watching, and make sure you watch this video once or twice and then understand the concept and leave it, right? Don't try to memorize or memorize or anything, right? These tags and all, once we start practicing again and again and again, you will automatically, it comes out of you. You don't have to memorize or do anything. It might be overwhelming if this is the first time you are seeing how to create HTML forms. This looks very simple, right? But this is the code that runs behind it. And trust me, this is not even 10%, because we will need to add CSS styling, and then we need to add JavaScript logics, and then we need to process data as well. We need to handle the file submission. If, let's say, if someone wants to upload an image, if someone wants to upload a resume, something like that, then those functionalities, we need to take that form, we need to take that data and process it in the database and save it and produce it somewhere else. So there is a lot of things that we need to do. So don't try to memorize or by heart or do anything such like that, but you just need to understand for, type, ID, name, value, these things, these basic things, you need to understand it, okay? Even I understand that I haven't explained you this action attribute as well, because it is not possible in HTML, so I haven't explained you. Even get parameter, get a method, get method or post method, I haven't explained you, because it is not valid right now. It will be an overwhelming, it will be challenging for you if this is the first time you're seeing HTML. So thank you very much for watching. Have a great day. We'll see you in the next video with another concept in HTML. Thank you very much. Have a great day.